Hey y'all, welcome back to the Loud Little Ducky. Today we are going to go over Owen's newest autism clickbait article along with another update in this case. So let's get started. So I am sorry if you cannot see this, but this is from November 7th, 2023. This was a wellness check, and this is the CAD sheet for the Scottsdale Police Department. And so, it says it's a field event, and then it says LOI search completed. And then we go into checking welfare of Owens, who sent an email with vague, unenlivening statements on November 6, 2023 at 22:38 hours to an anonymous tipster. And this says from anonymous tip. And so then on the 7th, it says, this morning she sent emails and posted on blogs that she was going to off herself, which would also mean offing her unborn twins. She recently lost an injunction against harassment case and has an upcoming court date for her further 2021 civil case on Thursday. So she's dealing with Clayton and she's dealing with Gillespie during this time period. Both of those cases are going on at the same time. And so then it says the case number, it says it is unsure if she is pregnant, though, or if she's just making these claims for attention and or to get out of her upcoming court appearance this week. Regardless, I am concerned that she is having suicidal ideations and would request her to be checked on. Yeah, sounds like some mean people out there worried about you and your fake unborn babies. And so then it says, Owens runs a popular podcast called Nobody Told Me and has recently reported being harassed on Reddit. And then it says, see the history. Says made phone contact with her. She's C4 and says she's being trolled by Reddit followers. If she ever does, like she has sit here and said, y'all make me feel borderline. Y'all make me want to do this to myself. And she keeps just brushing off these wellness checks. Oh, I'm being trolled. I'm not actually going to do that. Although I'm going to put in an FBI tip, I'm not actually doing it. It's just how I'm feeling. I'm not actually going to do those actions. Well, don't say you're going to do those actions unless you really mean it. It's not something to joke about. Because what happens when somebody doesn't want to do these wellness checks because the one time you actually mean it, you've sat there and said, oh, I'm just being trolled. I'm not actually like that. And so they're like, well, it's just another one of those trolls. And then come to find out on a later date, you actually did it. That doesn't need to happen. So stop putting posts out there talking about this. Because it's not a joke. It's not just stuff you just willy-nilly throw out there. Like, people have concerns. That triggers a lot of people. It's not something to be played with. But now let's move into her article. I just wanted to cover that since we had it, and we'll move on. My new reality. How pregnancy, The Bachelor, a miscarriage, and an online cult and autism shaped a $149,000 judgment and a referral to the county attorney. Autism didn't shape anything in this because while this case was going on, nobody knew anything about autism. So you can't try to get these people that may have autism to be like, oh, that's so sad they treated an autistic person like this. When autism wasn't even in this case, you're trying to spin it like everybody should have known and we all knew you were different. Even you knew you were like, that is a bunch of BS. Autism did not shape this case in any way. It still doesn't affect it to this day. And even if you have it, which I don't know that you do, it has nothing to do with this case. It does not excuse your abhorrent behavior. So she writes, autism made me second guess myself. Well, apparently you didn't second guess filing a frivolous lawsuit, lying and doctoring medical evidence. Like, it didn't make you second guess any of that. She says, but if it was the court's refusal to dismiss my paternity case after I miscarried that made me second guess the legal system. As my author friend said, oh, she has an author friend too. If I pitched this story as fiction, publishers would say it's too far-fetched. Yeah, you can't write this. That's why the saying, sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. That applies to this because who would believe your story? Nobody. Because it didn't happen. You would be a medical miracle if all the things you said happened and were true. They would write books and do documentaries on this medical marvel of somebody who gets pregnant with twins every time she gets pregnant, back to back to back. It doesn't happen. And definitely not with doctored evidence. Your author friend does not have any grasp of reality, or they've not seen all the evidence, because your author friend would say you are a liar. And that's why it's far-fetched, because it's not believable. She says, growing up, I was the quiet one in a family of big personalities. Both of my parents were talk show hosts and were able to command every room they walked into. My sister was always surrounded by friends, and me, I stayed on the sidelines, painfully shy, not because I wanted to speak up, but because I didn't know how. I wanted so badly to feel comfortable in my own skin, to have the ease and confidence they had. Okay, that's something from your last article, so we're just copying, pasting things from other articles into this because you can't come up with anything new. And of course, it says, I cried, God, did I try, devoured every self-help book I could find, convinced that if I just worked hard enough, I could fix the part of me that couldn't come out of my shell. This is, again, copy and pasted from her last article that we went over. As an adult, people assumed I was outgoing because I pushed myself into situations that demanded confidence. I went to workout classes every day. I started a podcast, even a TEDx talk, but none of it came naturally. I thought that if I kept pushing myself, I'd eventually find the confidence that always seemed just out of reach. But no matter how much effort I put in, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, something everyone else seemed to have effortlessly. A conscience? Truth? What are you looking for? You have confidence because you have gall and audacity out the wazoo. Then she goes into it again. The truth is I missed out on so much and I hated myself for it. I would cancel plans with friends, not because I didn't want to be there, but because the thought of navigating social interactions drained me before I even left the house. That's how I feel a lot of the time. Um, my son is very similar. I see the struggle, and I'm sorry you don't seem to have that. That is my opinion, and I have a right to that opinion. Even when I craved connection, the effort felt overwhelming. When I made it out, I wanted to leave early, retreating from the noise, the chaos, the overwhelming feeling that I just couldn't keep up. I even missed my sister's bachelorette party despite being her maid of honor because the pressure to be on for an entire weekend felt unbearable. You know why it's probably unbearable and why it's so exhausting for you to go out in public is because you have to put on this fake version of yourself. What's less exhausting is if you just be yourself. Stop trying to be things you're not. Stop trying to come up with stories that are not real. Maybe that's why it's unbearable, because you'll have people asking you questions that you don't want to answer. You'll have people finding out the truth about you, and you can't be seen not pregnant. You are afraid that your lies will come tumbling down. It's not exhausting to be truthful and honest and to be yourself. But pretending is very exhausting. At the time, I didn't understand why I just couldn't be like everybody else. I blamed myself, convinced it was a flaw in my personality. It is. And I don't know if that's coming from people who were on radio and all that. They just have to be on all the time, so you just took that. Like you have to just have this image portrayed that's not you. Being you, your true authentic self, not what you put out online, not what you try to do to these men and lie in these courts. Your true authentic self is good enough. And that's for anybody out there. Just be you because there's no one else like you. Stop pretending. She says certain sounds, even ones that weren't particularly loud, could overwhelm me to the point of feeling physically ill. That is usually called misophonia. And I get that. I have that. I have that with styrofoam. It gives me goosebumps. It hurts my ears. It makes me enraged, the sound of it. Some people think nature is quiet and peaceful. I think nature is loud. I don't like my TV being above a certain volume. My kids hate it when I tell them to turn down their TV and their volume is at like 10 because I can hear it through the wall. I get that. That doesn't necessarily make you autistic. It was like my senses went into overdrive. Sudden changes, even small ones, would throw me into a state of panic. Something as simple as changing plans or a shift in my daily routine would derail me completely. What plans do you have? Because from the looks of it, you spend a lot of time just emailing. Like 400 emails to an ex. Emails to sponsors, emails to YouTube, emails to the court, emails to the FBI. What plans? do you have other than emailing all day? Relied on a routine, even eating the same meals for weeks on end because it brought a sense of stability. Well, when you were with Maraschini, you were going to different restaurants all the time. I mean, you went to your favorites quite a lot, but it seemed like y'all went out to eat every Wednesday as a family when you were with him. I don't know if y'all still do that, but that's what we learned from your court documents. So I don't think that is true with what we know. At the time, I didn't understand why this was happening, and it made me feel trapped. Over the years, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and ADHD. I think your PTSD is all a lie. So I don't think you really have that. Depression, yeah, you probably have that. Anxiety, yeah, you should have that too, because I would have anxiety all the time if I was afraid I was going to be found out about. If my lies were going to catch up to me, I'd be anxious all the time. Am I going to go to jail? Am I going to get caught? Am I going to get away with this? That's a lot of anxiety. But you put it on yourself. And I don't usually say that about things because I have a child with anxiety. And I see how crippling it made his life at one point. He has gotten a lot better. He's kind of normal now. He still deals with it, but he's learned how to cope with certain things through therapy, which you should get. Each label explained a part of what I was feeling, but it never felt like the complete picture. It wasn't until I was diagnosed with autism that everything started to make sense. Suddenly, there was a name for why I experienced the world. It's a compulsive liar. That's the name for it. Like, you don't know how not to lie. And I would like to see proof of this because nobody will believe it. And it's hard to believe your medical proof because we know you doctor medical evidence. You have no credibility. She says, it's not something I ever thought that would describe me. I connect deeply with people. I understand humor, emotions, and social cues. I do not think so. I feel everything, sometimes too much. I make eye contact. I didn't realize that it could look so different for everyone. As my doctor explained, the saying goes, if you've met one person on the autism spectrum, you've met one person on the autism spectrum. In other words, no two people with autism are the same. You're right. But there is a scale and there is criteria that fits onto that. And I don't see where you have it, but I'm not a medical doctor. I just don't see it. For me, it's losing sleep over the world considers the smallest decision. It's freezing, overthinking, retreating when life feels too overwhelming. It's second guessing yourself into paralysis, convinced somehow doing nothing feels safer than doing the wrong thing. That's more like sometimes perfectionism or anxiety, where if you can't do it right, why do it at all? Because you're going to do it wrong and you don't want to do it wrong, so you have the anxiety that you're going to mess up. And so why try? I can understand that. It's a different type of failure. It doesn't make you autistic, though. And I don't know when you retreat, unless you're faking being scared like Amber Heard did in the Johnny Depp v. Heard trial. In May 2023, I found myself staring at a positive pregnancy test after a year of celibacy and my life unraveled. It was 11 days after I hooked up with my then realtor, Clayton Echard, former star of The Bachelor. Suddenly, the structure and predictability that kept me grounded were gone and froze. Why? You've been through this 4 times at least? 3 for sure that I know of. I don't know if babies were in on the first initial victim that we know about from 2014. But 3 times you've been through this. Maybe even more, because I think one of them you might have had 2 pregnancies. Or you at least lied about 2 pregnancies. But at least 3 times you found yourself in this situation. And each time it was about 11 days after you hooked up. So that's when we talk about a pattern. That's a pattern, Laura. I went to urgent care to get a pregnancy confirmed, which it was, and informed Echard about the 2 positive test results. I provided him with access to my patient portal so he could verify it. Here's my Banner Health patient portal. He texted me a list of options like it was a business transaction. Well, for him it was, because there was nothing between y'all. He made a mistake. Now he wants nothing to do with you. So it is a business transaction. It's a business deal. I would like for you to get an abortion. If you do not, that's your choice. Either you'll take 100% custody of the child or it will be put up for adoption, he said. Then later, one of us will have 100% custody. There will be no joint custody. I read it like that to mock her because she keeps putting this crap in here. Like it means anything. He said that he would talk to me when the time came to take a prenatal paternity test. Yeah, why should he talk to you any time before that? Just because you're pregnant and if you just gave him BJ's, why does he even need to talk to you about it? Because babies aren't made that way. So he's not the father even if you are pregnant in his world. Weeks later, Echard invited me to his apartment saying, I feel God is telling me we should meet up. I thought we could finally talk about the pregnancy as adults and make the decision together. When I arrived, he immediately handed me a pregnancy test he had purchased and asked me to take it in front of him. I don't know why that needs to be underlined. Because you brought a pregnancy test with you anyways to take in front of him in case he wanted that. So stop acting offended by that. She says I did, and it was positive again. You know what's really weird too? That, well, I guess not. Because you can, yeah, I guess not. Because with my son, so I was going to say it'd be weird to go to get a pregnancy confirmed and not have an ultrasound then too, but you're so early that they may not have had that version of, like, they would have had to do the wand ultrasound. And while I would like to think that, I know emergency rooms and like hospitals have it. I don't know if all urgent cares have it or not. But if you're there to confirm a pregnancy, that they would maybe do more than just a peach stick test. And why don't you have a regular doctor that you can go see for that? But remembering back to when I found out I was pregnant with my son, I actually had sprained my ankle due to a damn clown. That's a story for another day. And it was Halloween night. So y'all are going to have to remind me to tell y'all that story one day. But they of course did a pregnancy test because they wanted to see if my ankle was broken because it was swollen and all this other stuff. And so before they did the x-rays on it, they did the pregnancy test. And they came in there and told me I was pregnant. And so I had that. And I was 5 weeks at that time. And so I didn't have anything else, but I also wasn't there for pregnancy. I was there for something else, and I just found out I was pregnant at the time. But if I would have gone in there seeking confirmation on pregnancy, I feel like they might have done an ultrasound at an urgent care. Like, why not? But I don't know. I mean, it's all a lie, so it doesn't even matter. But I'm trying to compare it to real life scenarios, which I know doesn't really apply here. Sorry for being logical. So then she continues on. This is still copy and paste from the last article. In his deposition, Echard admitted buying the test, later to dismiss the results by saying, let's call it an HCG because she was never pregnant. When asked directly if it was on the box, that's what it was marketed as. It's a pregnancy test to most people, but not her, he said on Reality Steve. She says the day after seeing the test results with his own eyes, he finally seemed to accept reality. He texted me, I wanted you to come over and confirm what I was doubting so I don't see you as a liar anymore. She repeats that, he said that she thought they were finally on the same page, and he said keep an open mind and maybe they could possibly be intimate again, which I still don't know if he said that. I haven't seen the proof that he said that, I don't think, but he's just placating her if he did, like the rest of the guys did. Within hours, though, everything changed again. He told me he had prayed and received an answer that they were not meant to be together in any capacity, then added, God has spoken to me that it is your body and your choice. Therefore, I am not going to ask you to get an abortion. However, that is my preference personally. She says, given the sudden change of heart, I thought maybe he was overwhelmed, uncertain, or just needed time to process everything. In my mind, having two parents involved was the best scenario. Usually it is. Not always, but usually. And if he had been open to seeing if we could figure out how to be parents together, or at least co-parent peacefully, you didn't want to co-parent peacefully. You wanted a relationship. Because if you couldn't have the relationship, then you were just going to have the babies, which you still didn't do. So stop saying you wanted to just be parents together or co-parent. You didn't want to co-parent. You wanted a relationship, and then you'd get rid of babies. So a relationship with no kids, or you were just going to be a mom and take these men for everything they had, which you still did with no babies. There was a chance he might reconsider, so over the next couple of months, I tried to reopen the conversation, hoping we could find common ground after he blocked you and told you to leave him alone. And many different numbers and emails. You bombarded him. It wasn't you just tried to reopen. No, you made threats to him. You didn't try to reopen the conversation. You threatened him. Says, I later learned through Echard's deposition that his promises were never real. Okay. I later learned through Echard's deposition, but that his promises were never real. My attorney asked, did you text her saying you were going to give her a chance? Echard says yes. "What did you mean by that?" my attorney asked. Echard replied, "Well, she said she would have an abortion unless I dated her, so at that point I had no reason to be truthful. I told her I'd give her a chance so I could find a way to potentially end the situation." "When you say give her a chance, you mean giving her a chance for a relationship?" my attorney clarified. "Yes," Echard admitted. "It was a lie. I had no intention of giving her a chance. I just told her what she wanted to hear to see if she'd go away." And that didn't work either. It just didn't. She never goes away, apparently. "And by that, you mean to see if she'd move forward with an abortion?" my attorney asked. "Yeah," Echard confirmed. So this is something she added in there. She didn't have this in the last article. I guess it's to try to answer the questions that people posted. Like, just stop trying to rewrite history and rewrite your articles and make them to something new when all your articles are the same BS and the same just lies that don't make any sense. Months later, Echard leaked those private conversations to the public, and the newly formed Justice for Clayton cult latched on to what they sensationalized as a dating contract. "Ma'am, you called it a contract in your email. They distorted my genuine efforts to find a way forward with a pregnancy, twisting it into a narrative that I was trying to extort him into a relationship. You gave him an ultimatum. You said, do this or else." Like, you extorted him. You extorted him in the lawsuit. You said, if you drop this, I won't sue you for this. You did try to extort him. It's not a narrative. It's true. And I will insert it into this so that we have the proof to go with this little comment, so that you can't try to say that we're twisting your words, because we're going to have it in black and white, and it's going to be from you. In an effort to get him involved in the decision-making process, I invited Echard and his family to 5 OBGYN appointments. How are they going to go to these appointments when you canceled them all? You forgot that. She said my mother had even reached out to his parents to try to include them in the process. Yet your mother needs to butt out, because this is not her business. Like, she has no business contacting them. Frankly, neither do you. Like, he's a grown man. Like, you don't need to go tell his mommy on him. That's not how being an adult works. I hope the hearing directly from a doctor might make the situation more real for him, might push him to finally engage with the pregnancy. Maybe, just maybe, he'd step up. Okay, but you stated as well that you were scared for him to even talk to the doctor. That you didn't want him to talk to them and harass them or know where you were at. Do we need to replay those words too? I think we will. And so, but each time he and his family showed no interest in attending. Well, you didn't give him a chance to attend because you canceled all the appointments. You didn't give him a chance. If there was an actual appointment, they would have probably gone. Not in support of you, but to make sure that you were telling the truth. But I feel like, I don't know if y'all have seen that, if y'all have ever watched Glee. Glee was a show choir type show that was on Um, the singing was actually great to me. I like musical stuff. And there is a time period where the choir director's wife fakes pregnancy. She buys a moon bump. She even pays this doctor to put in a fake ultrasound video while she's getting an ultrasound to show, see, there's babies in there. And none of it was real. It was all a lie. I can see her being like that. I do make a lot of show references and movie references because I watch a lot of shows. Um, I absorb content. I always have to be listening to or watching something at all times. Um, so I've seen a lot of things. So, but if you've seen that episode or you remember um, her faking that pregnancy in Glee, let me know in the comments because it was crazy. And I can totally see Owens doing that type of stuff. Um, and so she says, and I couldn't bring myself to face it alone. I'd cancel the appointments, suffocated by the thought of sitting there by myself, overwhelmed by the uncertainty and the pressure. Maybe part of me wasn't ready to face it either. Which time? Because you faced it alone, supposedly, with Maraschini and Gillespie. But with Clayton, you couldn't bear to face it alone. And you have your mother who butts into every aspect. So you wouldn't have been alone. You and your mother would have just been there. Because y'all have a weird relationship. So don't give me that bullshit of you being alone. She says, when it became clear that trying to work things out directly with Echard wasn't going anywhere, I decided to make a more structured approach. I paid a lawyer $5,000 to set up a middleman, hoping that with professional guidance we could come up with a clear parenting plan, something that would provide structure and remove the constant uncertainty. But even with legal help, we made no progress. The retainer ran out in a week, and I was right back to where I started again. You would never have been there if you would have just proved you were pregnant. And still to this day, nobody has seen any proof of pregnancy. The next article should be, here are my medical records from the Planned Parenthood visit I kept a secret until trial. That should be your next article. By that point, Echard had introduced a new, even more terrifying possibility, him moving out of state and taking full custody. Now, this is a new one, too. She said he made it clear, saying, don't try to explain to me that I can't move out of state and away from you. I absolutely can. Yeah, he can. Like, you can't tell them he can't move. But I researched this and learned that legally, he was wrong. No, he could still move as long as he comes to his court cases, or he can zoom in. Usually that's how it works. But you can't keep him from moving. And there was no court order that kept him from moving. So that's a load of bullshit. But I researched and learned that legally he was wrong. Filing a paternity case was the only way to ensure that any future decisions, especially something as life-altering as relocation, would have to be done through legal channels. It was my way of safeguarding my right to custody and making sure I wouldn't be cut out of the picture entirely. Where is that in any of your legal arguments? Where is that in any motion? Where is that said to a judge at any point? It wasn't. You have made it up and you're trying to find new ways for people to believe you. And maybe people who don't know this case that just read your stupid article will believe you. But if any of them look into the truth, that was not in the case. Just like your autism was not a part of this case. Neither was relocation and keeping somebody to stay. Because why do you want him to stay around if you need a restraining order against him? Oh, I need a restraining order, but I don't want him to move away from me. That makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? So we're keeping this transformative because we're entering in the pieces that you forgot to put in this article. Here is your email that says, Clayton, I was going to ask if you wanted to read the article I wrote before submitting it to the Huffington Post, but I know you won't respond. So I'll take that. I have your permission to send it in as is. Guess what isn't consent? Silence. Silence is not consent. Before I do that, and prior to your work getting involved with withholding income for child support, I wanted to ask one last time about the agreement. I added a few things to it that are in bold. Here it is. Version 4, Relationship Non-Disclosure Agreement. Oh, and what is a non-disclosure agreement? An NDA is a legal contract that keeps one party from revealing another party's secrets. An NDA makes a confidential relationship between the parties. It's used to protect proprietary or secret information, typically in business relationships. You want to talk about Clayton talking to you like it's a business transaction when you're entering contracts into this relationship. And relationship, I don't mean boyfriend and girlfriend. I just mean a relationship between two people. People have many different types of relationships. This is just not a love relationship. So a non-disclosure agreement is a contract. So stop acting like you did not submit a dating contract or a relationship contract. Says, I also contacted another abortion pill company who said we could still do it at this point if we wanted to. Well, isn't it grand that Arizona allows you to do this? Because guess what? If this was Texas, it wouldn't be happening, which is a topic for another day. You haven't and aren't putting pressure on me to do that. But it is really important that we talk about this if you don't want to have the twins with me. Your behavior leads me to believe that would be your preference. So you do need to say something if it is. I will not hold it against you whatsoever if you sign the agreement. If you don't, that's fine, but we are having them. So here's you extorting. Sign the contract or else. How is that not extortion? How is that not a contract? You enter into this, you sign on the dotted line. And I'm glad you put this in here because you can't try to go after him for abortion coercion like you did Gillespie. I just wanted to have a fresh start and remove all of this animosity from the picture. We need to be making smart decisions right now, not ones driven by emotions. Neither one of us wanted this, but it's happened, and we need to make smart choices. If I don't hear back, that's fine. We can continue this like this, and I will submit my piece to the Huffington Post. You wanted to remain anonymous, but you're contacting the media once again. But your unresponsiveness is getting you nowhere with me and will get you in trouble with the court. Well, let's just see about that. Please simply consider the agreement with modifications. It is written entirely in your favor, not mine. All the best. So, yeah, Tell me again how this is not a relationship contract, a dating contract, because it sure looks like it is. And you know what else is not in this contract? Which I didn't include the actual contract, just the email that went with it. But, you want to date with intention. You said there's no obligation to have intercourse, which is great. From the date that this agreement is signed, yeah, that's a contract. But something that's not in this is your excuse for him not to be able to move like you stated. If you didn't want him to move, why is that not in your contract? That he agrees to stay where he's at or stay in the same state while this happens. It's because it's a lie and you just pulled it out of your ass now. What is your answer for that? And let's look at this video clip from court the day of the trial. When you say in your article you wanted Clayton to be there, you wanted his family to be there, and you gave them 5 opportunities and they decided not to go. But this is your answer on the stand as to why you did some things. Let's take a listen.
Yes.
Did you have a sonogram done in California?
Yes, I did.
Where was that done?
Planned Parenthood.
And you understand, and I'm sure Mr. Woodnick will ask you.
Yes.
Did you have a sonogram done in California?
Yes, I did.
Where was that done?
Planned Parenthood.
And you understand, and I'm sure Mr. Woodnick will ask you about this. Planned Parenthood has not been able to verify that you were ever seen there. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Yes, I went under a fake name when I went there.
Remember, you can't go under a fake
And
name.
you had a sonogram done. Did you ever present that sonogram as
They'd be
evidence in
shut
court
down if they
proceedings anywhere?
allowed
No.
that.
We have obviously presented it in this case, but you've admitted already that you changed the name at the top or the location. Did you change the name at the top of the sonogram?
The location, yes.
Why did you do that?
I changed it because Mr. Echard was being threatening towards me, and I didn't want him to know where I had gone and try to track down my providers.
Okay. After the Planned Parenthood sonogram, do you remember approximately what date that was? I know you signed a declaration. I think it said July 2nd, and then there may be a conflict. Do you remember what date that was?
It was actually the end of June.
Okay.
So nobody knows what date you actually did it on. You put a date on there. You had brought up another date, and you were there another date, but you were also horse riding on some of those dates in another location. But you didn't want Clayton to know where you got the sonograms or to know who your providers were. So tell me again how he had the chance to go to these appointments with you to verify it for himself. He didn't. You're a liar, and you've been caught once again. Just tell the damn truth for once. Now back to the article. With that in mind, I decided that the next logical step was to file a paternity test. I thought it would force Echard to come up with his own idea of a schedule. His schedule was not to have an interaction with you. That's what he wanted. See, that the court encouraged joint custody so the kids could have both parents in their lives, even if the relationship between those parents didn't work out. And also compel him to take a prenatal pregnancy test. He would have taken one of those either way to prove that you are crazy and don't know what you're talking about. Arizona allows you to file while pregnant, and you don't even need proof, but I had it. It seemed like a no-brainer to file. That was in her last article. It would be a no-brainer if you were actually pregnant and if you actually had proof, but every bit of proof, there was something wrong with it. It was fake. It was a lie. It came from somebody else. It was not about you. After filing, I paid $725 for a prenatal paternity test at the lab he had chosen, fully expecting him to schedule his portion, but he didn't. He ignored calls and emails from the lab to pick a date, and I was forced to get a refund. You canceled his appointment. You scheduled it and you canceled it. Why does he need to schedule it if you already scheduled one for him? Another attempt at getting answers met with silence. I didn't want to go to the media to pressure Echard to take accountability, but it felt like my only option at this point. I wasn't seeking attention or fame. I even asked to remain anonymous, but yet you went to the Huffington Post. And why wouldn't you go to the media with people that weren't famous? You didn't go to the media with Maraschini or Gillespie or Matt. So you didn't want notoriety? You felt like smearing his name in the media was the only way. But you got away with it so well in cases that you didn't have the media involved. I think the media was your problem in this one. He had been my realtor, and then, oh, he would have made money off of me. That's another story. So I was going to give him money. So how am I in it for the money? I hoped the public pressure would compel him to take the DNA test and finally engage in a conversation about a custody plan. Well, he did finally take the DNA test. But you don't mention that in here. You act like there was never a DNA test done. Judge Mata had denied my motion to compel the DNA test. Okay, but he still ended up taking 3 DNA tests. 2 came back, little to no fetal DNA. 1 lost in transit. Which is where I think these fake babies are, lost in transit. I understood that as her refusing to force him to take it, the situation was spiraling out of control and I needed answers from him. But you got them. There was little to no fetal DNA to even get a paternity test. And if you have 2 babies in there, you would think that that is more probable to find fetal DNA than if you just had 1. And you took it at different stages in your pregnancy too. So the further along you went, the more fetal DNA that there should have been, right? But never enough in the entirety of this case. When the news hit the press, Echard denied that our one-night stand resulted in a pregnancy, and everyone seemed to believe him. Why wouldn't he? He was the former lead on The Bachelor, and apparently because he handed out roses on national TV 2 years ago, he was someone that the public thought they could trust. Meanwhile, I was painted as a manipulative liar, just like the other woman that lied about him previous to you. Clayton is honest by fault, much to his own demise, usually. Usually, some things that come out about him aren't always the best, but he's being honest. And some people don't like honesty and straightforwardness because it's not sugar-coated to what you want, but it's the truth. But he was one of the most hated bachelors in Bachelor Nation when this program was going on. And everybody didn't believe him right off the bat, because when you hear somebody say, "Oh, I just got a BJ," you're like, well, if she's pregnant, obviously that's not true. But guess what? We waited for you to show us that you were pregnant. And it just never happened. That's what took us by shock, is that all these months later, and still to this day, you have not proved you were pregnant with his babies at all. The irony, the Daily Beast wants him called the biggest F-boy in Bachelor history. Yet no one seemed to question his versions of events. Yeah, maybe he screwed around with a bunch of people. Doesn't mean he's lied about it. He's been pretty truthful about it, which is part of the reason people didn't like it. This was the same man who, on the Vile Files, admitted when I came over that night, we took our clothes off. Because he's never denied that he had a sexual interaction with you. It just wasn't intercourse. And it just didn't cause a pregnancy. So just because one thing happened doesn't mean that everything happened. And if you could still, to this day, show us proof that you were pregnant, that this Los Angeles appointment at Planned Parenthood that you say happened from June 10th, it is now September 26th, and you've had months to show us the proof from that Planned Parenthood appointment that you came up with the day of trial that was never mentioned before. Why have you not come out with that piece of evidence instead of writing these Medium articles that are spilling the same stuff over and over? We don't need you to tell us what has happened over the last year or two. We need you to either admit you're a liar or show us the proof that you have kept secret. Why would you keep this secret if it proves you're innocent in all this? It's because it doesn't exist. I mean, you would not have to write all this. You wouldn't have to go through all this if you would just admit it or put your money where your mouth is with your evidence. But you don't have any, so you have to keep writing these articles. You're digging yourself into a hole. In his deposition, he admitted that he wanted to, but said that I didn't want to. Okay, that sounds like the truth, because you accused him of ARPing. Later, he even suggested I might have injected myself with his stuff after running to the bathroom. If I had wanted to get pregnant and trap him, why would I have told him I didn't want to have sex? The lengths he claims I went to are absurd. He's not saying you did these things because we don't believe you were ever pregnant. So therefore, we don't think you actually injected yourself with his stuff to get yourself pregnant. We think you did something to make your HCG levels higher. And so that's where that is. Because what you're claiming happened and what actually happened don't make sense. So it has to be something really absurd if this is actually true, which you've yet to prove that any of it's true. So no, we don't think you actually turkey basted yourself because we don't believe there were ever babies. But if there were babies, which you've not proven, then you would have had to do something. And it has to be crazy because you just don't get pregnant with a blowjob. The Justice for Clayton group is far more than just a fan base. It operates like a cult, driven by a disturbing mix of groupthink, obsession, and a shared goal to discredit me at all costs. No, the goal is for you to get help and to quit lying. Quit ruining people's lives. Go on with your life. Stop with all your shenanigans and just be Owens. Stop putting on a facade. Just be you and stop trying so hard. And we don't have to discredit you at all costs. All I've done is show you things that you've done. I've used your words against you in your own arguments because you contradict yourself constantly. What began as a group of supporters rallying behind a reality star has evolved into a coordinated and relentless campaign to tear down my life, fueled by blind loyalty and anger. Nobody is blindly loyal to Clayton. If Clayton does something and he screws up in life, just because we are on his side for this issue doesn't mean that we're on his side with every issue. It's the same thing as Johnny Depp. Just because we don't believe that he did those things to Amber Heard doesn't mean that we don't think he had a problem with drinking and drugs. But just because he does one thing that we don't like and we know he's guilty of doesn't mean he did another thing. Their behavior goes beyond passionate fandom. They function like a hive mind, feeding off of each other's rage and amplifying every rumor, lie, or half-truth they come across. They're not interested in the facts or the truth, only maintaining the narrative they've constructed to justify their attacks. I'm going with your narrative. I'm going with your words, your documents. Talk about people don't tell your story, but we have shared your documents, your story. So to explain that, we're not the ones that wrote the narrative. You and your lawyer are. Any evidence that challenges their beliefs is dismissed or twisted to fit their agenda. No, we don't have to twist the evidence because the evidence is what the evidence is. The video doesn't lie. You do. Echard himself has acknowledged the obsession that JFC has with me. In an interview, he said the community of people keeps uncovering and supporting me and is tracking her every movement. Yeah, he doesn't need to because people are, and because you won't go away. You keep putting things out into the public and keep going on with the story. He is moving on with his life. You are not. Because you are a sore loser. You cannot just take the hit and say, you know what? I lost in court. All right, on to the next. Just take it and go. In another interview, he added, so I can go on about my day while these people are like, oh, we found this out about her. And it's like, sorry, like you brought this on yourself. Well, you did. He's not wrong there. What started as anxiety over the pregnancy became fear of the outside world. Echard even had the audacity to mock the fact that I felt unsafe, saying that's her fault. Well, it is because you brought all this on yourself. The stress from the pregnancy was already overwhelming, but the harassment that followed made it impossible to feel safe or stable. Well, you shouldn't have taken it to the media. Online content creators have played a significant role in exploiting the Justice for Clayton narrative, creating thousands of hours of monetized content that feeds into the obsession of their following. Well, some people do get to be monetized. Others, like myself, are not monetized. You know, I'm talking about videos, podcasts, social media posts, dissecting every aspect of my life. That's because you put every aspect of your life online. They depend on the community's dedication to generate income, and the group, in turn, uses this content as validation for their beliefs. It's a terrifying cycle where my life, my trauma, is being monetized and used as a tool to deepen their cult-like devotion to Echard. Nobody's devoted to Clayton. We're just not letting somebody get away with lying on men. You give women a bad name, and it pisses me off. So here are some posts she included. Somebody from the Justice for Clayton official Instagram, I guess, which I don't follow. We know you're reading this, Laura. On behalf of anyone who has ever loved someone with autism, fuck off. Well, that's their opinion, and they have the right to have it. And then on the We Believe Laura Owens, I don't know why that's even called that. Although I do know of this Twitter. I may even follow this Twitter account. I've never really looked at the name. Laura Owens needs prosecution for her last decade of pregnancy cons and scams. How the JFC sees Laura Owens. Yeah, we do. Because you should not be able to do this to people. But because you're a woman, you get away with it. If a man was to try scheming and conning like you had, he'd been in jail a long time ago, and that's just not fair. We need to treat women like we do men who do things. But, oh, women are just these small, dainty people who, they couldn't ever do something. No. There's women out here with a lot of audacity and gall and balls who will do anything to tear somebody down. And with guys, sometimes when they do things, it's because they didn't really think. With women, there's thought behind it. Most women don't do things willy-nilly. We thought about the consequences and we decide to go ahead with it anyways. We use our looks to manipulate, to get what we want. Women are vile sometimes. It's even, I don't know about a lot of you, but sometimes it's hard to be friends with girls. I usually do better with guy friends because I don't like the cattiness. I don't like backstabbing and manipulation. And there's a lot of people who are about that in this world. And it's just not for me. I don't have the energy to deal with drama like that. I do have the energy to fight for justice, though. And that's what we do here, Owens. Here we have another Justice for Clayton thing. This one is kind of funny. It has your fake ovarian cancer. It has your pregnancy test, dating victims, Hinge, gold digging, which I don't know much about. Yeah, it's got your fake sonogram that I believe is your sister's, dating contracts. You called the FBI, you need to be in jail, your HCG. And so, you got lies, you got your self-help books, all of that stuff. Because you do want to trap a man. And you wouldn't have to if you would stop being so extra. If they don't want to be with you, then okay. Yeah, it sucks. It hurts our feelings when people don't want to be with us. But you know what? Move on and find somebody to love you for you. That will treat you like a queen. We all deserve that. But the way you're going about it, you're not ever going to find someone like that. And so you're going to have to feel like you need to trap them because they obviously won't just want to stay with you. Stop being extra and just chill the F out. Online content creators have played a significant role in exploiting the Justice for Clayton narrative, creating thousands of hours. Okay. That's basically the same thing you were talking about, depending on the community's dedication to generate income, use the content as validation for their beliefs, terrifying cycle, my life, my traumas. Okay, we just read that part. They've created hundreds of pages of forensic level timelines. And what's wrong with that? Because you want a timeline when you're trying to follow a story. That's why in court, it's really good when an attorney takes you through the timeline of what happened. You know, at first it was a day like any other. And then by the end of it, the horrific actions happened. And then after the horrific actions happened, this is what that criminal did next. We want the timeline to see how things progressed and how things went. We want the full story. And we had to put together a timeline because it was getting confusing to follow your ever-changing narrative. We would need a timeline to keep up with all this nonsense. And then the fact that we just thought it was one person, and then it ended up being 2, 3, 4, and 10 years. How are we supposed to figure out a 10-year timeline of what you've been doing without putting it into an order so that we know what happened before what? No, that was before this incident. No, that was after that incident. Because if it's in just a willy-nilly order and we don't put it in the order that it actually happened, things can look worse for you, actually. Digging through my past, my present, even asking for donations to support their so-called research. You can do the same thing. Like, nobody's stopping you. I'm sorry that nobody in your life, other than your mother and your dad, has decided to stand up for you. Like, where are your friends? Like, where are the people that saw you when you were pregnant? There's not one person that has said, no, she was pregnant when we went out to lunch on this date. She was pregnant. Like, I saw her belly. Like, you didn't have any of that. Like, that would have helped. Yeah, we went swimming. She had a belly. None of that. We changed, we went into the dressing room and tried on clothes and all that. And when she was in this, we saw it. We saw her, just none of it. You don't have anybody to back it up. That's a weird thing too. For example, they dug up an article about me from high school in the alumni magazine mentioning my junior year, slipping on black ice. Very rare injury called Lisa Frank fracture dislocation. My classmates witnessed the accident. I had 2 surgeries and I was on crutches for months. Yeah, but were you on crutches longer than you should have been? Like, did you just milk it for everything you got because you got attention from being on crutches and people felt bad for you and you liked the attention you got from being a victim? Even if you were a true victim, did you play the role up? Did you extend it longer than you actually needed to? Because it seems like that's what you would do. It's not how it should go, but that's what it sounds like you did. Yet Justice for Clayton claimed I fabricated the entire thing, even researching the weather from that day in an attempt to prove that black ice wasn't possible. Well, was it or wasn't it? I don't even know about this article. I don't know about the date of this article. I don't care. It might just be another thing you lied about. It could be a thing that you are telling the truth about, but you milked it. We don't know. That doesn't pertain to this story and you ruining somebody else's life. If you did all that in high school, then your problems started long before now. If you didn't, did it start there from the attention you got? And you knew lying and scheming would get you places and get you things. She says my former landlord joined in on harassment, posting a photo of my sandwich order from 5 years ago as evidence that I'm strange for asking for mustard on both sides. But who's more bizarre here, me or the landlord who took photo of my sandwich order and held it onto it for a half a decade. Okay, that is weird. And if she's weird for liking mustard on both sides, then I'm weird. I like mustard on both sides. Do not ask me to make you a sandwich if you are not okay waiting for it, because I'm a little OCD, and my mom calls it painting my sandwiches, because I need everything evenly spread on every surface of every corner, whether it's anything, whether it's PB&J, mustard, ketchup. I don't put mayonnaise on a sandwich, but if I make it for somebody else, I'm putting mayonnaise on every corner of it, and it's going to be spread evenly. And so that takes me a while. Like my mom said, I paint the bread. So if she's bizarre for that, then I guess I'm bizarre for that. I don't, I mean, it just shows her former landlord didn't like her. Because if he had to deal with her and her mother, they're both kind of like Karens. Like, they'd be wanting to speak to the landlord and the management all the time. So the landlord was probably getting calls all the time. These people are scaring buttons. Can you make sure this? Oh, there's noise complaints. Like, I'm sure the landlord got many calls from Karen, Jan, and Laura. Do you know who we are? I have a podcast. When the cult wasn't stalking me, they were tormenting those closest to me. Sister's workplace, emailing propaganda for justice for Clayton. They followed my 78-year-old father's ex-girlfriend from college on social media. That from college, she added in, because I remember in the last article, I was like, when did this ex-girlfriend happen? And props to the college girlfriend from knowing how to use social media as 78. And how did you find out who she was? Because who cares? Like, that's just weird. Like, leave those people alone. One made death threats against my mother on Facebook, saying everyone shoot that, followed by what they believed was her home address. Yeah, that's not okay. And those are trolls. I don't think those are true people for justice for Clayton. Because justice for Clayton equals justice for everyone. That's really what it is. We can change the name, as it is done in many cases, depending on who the victim is. It stands for justice for who has been done wrong. There's always the crazies out there, but that is not majority of us, but you cling on to those. They tracked every friend I made on social media, messaged all of my father's Facebook friends, and turned every old or new connection I had into another opportunity to spread their message. I haven't done that. I don't believe Lauren Knighty has done that. I don't think Dave has done it. I don't think Megan has done it. And I sure as heck know that umbrella guy didn't do it. You are just insane. You have the time to do stuff like that, not us. We have jobs and families and careers. I don't know what you do all day other than write emails. They fixated on a local politician who once gave me an award, launching a campaign of harassment simply because of his past connection to me. One of the JFCers ominously stated he definitely needs to be voted out for propping up a serial liar and abuser, while another followed up with, I encourage anyone and everyone to reach out and attempt to enlighten him. Yet another suggested a public withdrawal of his support for her would be nice. Those are opinions. And people that have been duped by you in the past and given you things that you don't deserve, they do deserve to be notified. I don't think we should bombard, and they can do what they want, and maybe it's not fully within his, discretion. He might have just been the one that gave the award while a board of people behind him actually voted on it and chose that. But anybody deserves to know the truth about you in case they've been duped. At the time, you may have seemed great, but once your skeletons are out, you don't. But those are people's opinions, and you can't do anything about that. People are allowed to have opinions. You sure as heck do in your delusional world that you want to live in. They filed false reports of Adult Protective Services alleging my mother and I were abusing my father. That might have been a little too far, but I mean, maybe they thought y'all were Kathy Bates in Misery. They called in multiple prank welfare checks. We've already talked about prank welfare checks because you threaten stuff so much that one day, if for some reason you eventually decide to do that, which I hope never comes, let's hope, because you've just told everybody, oh, nothing to see here, even though there were legitimate proof of why there was concern, then what if one day they decide, oh, it's just the trolls on the internet again, and they decide not to come to your rescue, which should never happen. Always go check whether it's a prank or not. Don't go swatting people. But you were putting out stuff that people were worried about you. Because as much as we dislike what you're doing, we don't want to see you just vanish off the face of the earth and do something like that. It's not worth it. You can come back from this. I know it doesn't seem like it, but you can. But it means taking ownership and admitting your mistakes. Talks about, oh, you just did all that so you could get the body cam footage. I don't think that anybody was thinking about body cam footage when they called in a welfare check. Maybe they were. But I think they would have done it at different points. And they would have done it while you were pregnant, before you had claimed miscarriage, so that they could see if you had a pregnant belly or not. But the one where you would have had a pregnant belly, supposedly, amazingly, that's the one where your mother dealt with it and you were taking a nap. Good things those dumbass police officers fell for your mother. And they didn't do their job. Because that would have been very eye-opening. The strategy was clear. If they repeated a lie enough times, people would start to believe it. I don't need to repeat a lie. I just show what you did. I show your words. Things that you said. Things that you did. I don't need to repeat a lie. I just put out what you put out. So nobody's misconstruing anything. They can take a look at it and listen for themselves and decide. We don't need to spin it because we're just reading your words. I tragically miscarried and sought to dismiss the paternity case in December of 2023. I'm not going to touch that. I have gone over my personal story in dealing with this, and another reason it pisses me off. Just no. At this point, he didn't have any legal fees. She talked about that, but instead allowing me to dismiss. She chose Echard chose to hire a lawyer. Oh, now we're, harping on people for hiring lawyers. You don't get to use somebody having a lawyer against them. You can't do that. Echard's attorney, Greg Woodnick, was someone I had an acrimonious history with. In 2021, he had represented my ex, Greg Gillespie, and so an acrimonious history with. So acrimonious means angry and bitter. So an angry and bitter history with. Yeah. Why? Because you accused Gillespie and Woodnick of doing horrific things, criminal things with no proof, of kidnapping you and ARPing you. Yeah. I wonder why you have an angry and bitter past with Greg Woodnick. Why he takes things with you a little personal. Because you went after him. And you could have ruined his career and his life with those lies. With no proof, all you wanted was to win a case. You wanted Greg Gillespie to pay. And because Woodnick was helping him, you decided to go after him. That's what makes you a vicious and vile woman that nobody likes. You slander and libel every man that comes near you. It's disgusting. One of Woodnick's first moves was to demand that I sign an affidavit admitting that I was never pregnant. Yeah, well, he's giving you a way out. Save yourself. When I refused to sign it, his response was to accuse my attorney of failing to guide me to what he called the obvious exit ramp. Okay, that's the truth. There was a way out. He made it sound as though this entire nightmare could disappear if I simply signed my name to a lie. It wouldn't. It wasn't a lie. It was a very easy way for her to end the situation. My so-called exit, according to him, was to admit that I had made horrible choices and allegations that were not predicated in fact or science. Well, they're not. She says he went even further, saying that if I didn't sign it, would proceed to an evidentiary hearing in court where he said her exposure is testimony and evidence before the court that she was never pregnant by anyone. How could he honestly claim that I was never pregnant by anyone, especially when he'd been provided with medical proof of my prior pregnancy with his former client, Gillespie? He didn't have any proof. But he didn't stop there. He escalated his rhetoric, insisting that I needed to get into treatment to address whatever caused to live a life embellished in delusion, and declare I did exactly what I have been caught doing and I am committed to getting healthy. The alternative, he said menacingly, is that her behavior has been entirely predicated on toxicity and maliciousness, and it has. And she is on the hook for attorney's fees. Well, you are. That was proven in court. You're malicious. And you wonder why you feel like you need to trap a man or get them into a dating contract, fake pregnancy with the baby, is because you are evil to every male that comes into your vicinity. You needed to grow up with a brother. Your dad is whipped by your mom. You only have one male figure in your life. And he just does whatever your mom tells him to do, from the seams of it, from the looks of it. Maybe it wasn't always like that, but it seems like Jan wears the pants and controls all of you in that family. And you learned from her. She says, of course I didn't sign it. Bizarrely, Judge Julie Ann Mata of Maricopa County Superior Court granted Woodnick's objection to my motion to dismiss, extending the case for another 8 agonizing months. Well, if you would have just come out with the truth, this could have all ended so much sooner. But yet, as I said, we're still sitting in the end of September, almost October, and you have still not proven yourself. Bizarrely, Judge Julie Ann Mata of Maricopa County Superior Court granted Woodnick's objection to my motion to dismiss, extending the case for 8 agonizing months, And she says, if we had been 2 ordinary people working minimum wage jobs with no legal fees incurred, and I tried to dismiss paternity case after a tragic miscarriage, wouldn't the judge have allowed me to? Wouldn't she have shown compassion, not contempt towards me? She didn't show contempt towards you. She was very respectful towards you. She wanted respect back. Wouldn't she have sought to save court's time and effort? And you should have wanted to save the court's time and effort. You didn't by continuing on with this. But I said this in your last article. It could have been you and a homeless man, and it still would be wrong. Maybe the public wouldn't know about it, and you wouldn't have gone to the media about it, but it still would have been wrong. It still would have been a no-no, as I tell my grandson. Clayton's fame undoubtedly kept the case alive, dragging me through an entire legal battle that never should have been lasted this long. It shouldn't. It should have never even been a legal battle. She goes back to Woodnick and arguing a pattern of behavior, suggesting I had a history of faking pregnancies. Yeah, you do. Allowing Woodnick to delve into irrelevant parts of my past and no connection to my 2023 pregnancy with Echard. No, but it shows your pattern of trapping men 11 days in with fake babies. She says she was forced to sign a HIPAA release, giving him access. My attorney even reminded Woodnick that the records from converted pregnancy with Gillespie were easily accessible through One Medical, which Woodnick knew from Gillespie. Yeah, he had those. But what if there were others that you never told us about? He didn't need the One Medical ones. But you also say that the One Medical things, those are fake. I mean, you use One Medical and Maraschini too, I believe. So, how do we believe things? So, part of One Medical is correct, part of One Medical is not correct. Make it make sense. And how would Maraschini know that you used One Medical in a Gillespie case? So, this stuff doesn't make sense the way you spin it. And if you already have records, you don't need to get those records. You need to get other records. Oh, last month I contacted One Medical and was stunned to learn Woodnick had not even tried to obtain previously pregnant records because he already had them. He doesn't need to reach out to them again if he already has them. Woodnick didn't want the truth. He wanted to no, that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. He had that. It didn't prove anything. It just proves you're a liar. Sorry if it is noisy in the background. My pregnancy with Gillespie in 2021, which was basis for a civil case that filed against him for abortion coercion, where it was confirmed directly to Gillespie why One Medical, after he demanded I take a pregnancy test there. When I hesitated about going through with the abortion, he was like, take the effing pills. Stop saying it and do it, or I'm going to call the cops and make your life miserable if I didn't comply. These aren't allegations. He doesn't even deny sending those messages. Yes, but what were the messages that you were sending with him and torturing him with for weeks when he said this? He was tired of your games. After enduring that level of coercion and manipulation, I filed for and was granted the Order of Protections against Gillespie, which was one in 2021 and another that was renewed in 2022 and is still active today. Well, we'll see what happens with the next ones that prevent him from contacting me using pseudonyms on social media, which we have no proof of. And she has no proof of. She just thinks that they're him. From watching videos to track my whereabouts, the court granted the order stating they found reasonable cause to believe. Yeah, well, Judge Duty also didn't look at all the evidence in your Echard one, so why do I believe that he did in the first one? And he had ex parte communications with you, or Commissioner Duty, did not do his duty or diligence. She says, I was stunned to learn that Maraschini, a man I dated from 2016 to 2017, who was also listed on the witness list. Not only do I have a restraining order against him, but he had no relevant information about the 2023 case with Echard. The only thing that Maraschini had in common with the situation with Echard was that I had been pregnant by him as well, but that was 7 years prior. Yeah, and then between then, you had another twin pregnancy. You've had 3 twin pregnancies in a row. A medical marvel. In 2016, when I became pregnant, Maraschini accompanied me to Planned Parenthood for medication abortion. He later admitted this during a deposition. Yes, but you also sent him things that said, I'm getting an abortion and they're removing one of my ovaries. Like, it's in the text messages. It's in the medical records that you sent to him from One Medical. And mysteriously now in One Medical we have Gillespie too. Like, you can't keep your records straight. You can't keep your lies straight. A few months after, we went on a trip. Oh, of course, they went to Iceland and a stranger on a plane, and I broke up with him and he contacted her throughout the flight. The stranger said that he was frightening the way he was talking to me, all that stuff. And great, glad a stranger was concerned. But you push the man's buttons. He was mad at you. And you don't like what he had to say. But you're the one who wanted to go on this trip so bad to Iceland. This random act of kindness from the napkin lady became the foundation for my TED Talks, which needs to be removed, The Life-Saving Power of Kindness of Strangers, and was later featured in an edition of the Chicken Soup for the Soul's 30th anniversary edition. It is now just in the book that is published on paper because they can't remove something out of a book that's already been published. But the podcast that we have gone over, I will try to link that video in the description box if you haven't heard that episode. It is now removed, apparently. And her story in the digital version of Chicken Soup for the Soul is removed. So if they could have removed it out of an already published book, they would have, but they've taken it off of digital media for the Chicken Soup for the Soul. And so they kept the napkin lady because she is not a liar in this scenario. She did what a kind stranger would do. And so her story stays. Laura Owens' story is omitted. It's no longer available. The podcast interview does not appear on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or other platforms that list it. The link is either broken or not functioning. It says they're trying to get rid of the Dasami one, and of course trying to get rid of the TED Talk because it's all based on a lie. We've gone over some of the Dasami interview transcripts in some other videos, not that long ago. And so, yeah, it was removed. She gets to still claim that it was featured in a book because it was. It's still in the print version. Her parents have it on their little shelf in the body cam footage. But they don't want to be associated with her anymore. Says, demanding my stories be removed. Well, they kind of were. Claiming the airplane stranger must have misunderstood why Maraschini was treating me that way because they were there, right? He was yelling at you. Nobody says he wasn't. Nobody says he wasn't fed up with you. But he wasn't abusing you. It just dinged in your head, ooh, now I've got proof if I ever want to claim that he's an abuser. I've got this stranger to back me up. And there go your spins. If this man ever leaves me, this is what I'm going to do. Maraschini later gave a 2.5-hour interview on one of the Justice for Clayton's content creators, claiming it was his first time telling his story. First time he's told a judge twice. That was in her last article. But, yeah, he went on Megan's and he talked to her. Good for him. You should go watch it if you haven't already. But this is just verification that somebody emailed them and it was verification saying it was no longer there. I wonder if it's still no longer there or if it's been put back up. That would be interesting to see. I have not checked it myself. My attorney, David Gingras, filed multiple motions to exclude Maraschini as a witness in the Echard case, arguing that his inclusion violated my rights under the Violence Against Women's Act, the VAWA. The restraining order I had against Maraschini was issued by the San Francisco Superior Court, and for him to legally travel to California to Arizona, even for the purposes of appearing in court, would have required a modification from the issuing court. Nope. And guess what law enforcement found? No violation. We haven't heard anything from California on it either. Without following these proper legal steps, Maraschini's interstate travel to attend the hearing would violate federal law. No, it wouldn't, because it says in the law that you can travel, you can go to court when you're subpoenaed. It states that. Because can you imagine if people that had restraining orders against people couldn't show up to court to tell a part of the story? Like, people use that to keep people from trying to interfere and telling their truth. They try to silence them. They were scared of Maraschini and what he brought to this case, even though she says he didn't bring anything to this case. He did. And it was damaging. But why just threaten Maraschini with arrest? Why did you not have that much fear and threaten Gillespie for violating his order? Because you knew it wouldn't fly. Hadn't issued a valid subpoena for Maraschini, making his involvement even more inappropriate and legally unjustified. Well, the judge will call and talk to that judge, I'm sure. Our requests to exclude him were denied by Judge Mata, and both him and Gillespie came to the hearing. Prior to the hearing, Woodnick concocted a press release where he referred to my prior pregnancies as sham pregnancies. He also said claims of doctor confirming the pregnancy are patently false. Yeah, because all the doctors said they didn't see you. A telemed video appointment with a neurologist is not pregnancy confirmation. Yeah, it's not. Neurologists don't treat pregnancies. They may treat people who are pregnant, but they don't treat pregnancies. They don't confirm pregnancies. So this was a blatant, untrue statement. Woodnick knew the pregnancies had been confirmed by much more than a telehead appointment with a neurologist. He had obtained my blood and urine test results. Positive for pregnancy. No, positive for HCG. I signed a HIPAA release. He even sent them to Gingras after obtaining him. Despite this evidence, though, Woodnick chose not to submit it to the court. It was submitted to the court through motions. You still do not understand how this worked. She took all the motions and everything that was brought at the hearing on June 10th under advisement. She knew about the pregnancy test. She knew about the blood test. She knew that you had doctored evidence in this case, too. And if you doctor it in public, trying to spin your story, it's still not okay. You're still trying to paint a narrative that is factually not true. You shouldn't have lied to anybody. Anything you say or do will and can be used against you in a court of law. And that's what happened here. The date of the press release was one of the worst. I was overwhelmed not knowing how to defend myself when the truth didn't seem to matter. Well, no doctors confirmed your pregnancy. They got no medical records back of doctors saying they saw you. They all said, no. Dr. McCool, never seen you. Planned Parenthood said, never seen her. So, yeah. Dr. Higley, I think it was the same thing. Echard was a celebrity, and they took Woodnick's word at face value. No, we looked at the evidence. We looked at the evidence. Aren't attorneys supposed to tell the truth? Yeah, they are. And so are you, but you didn't. All right, we're going to listen to this Instagram post by Clayton and then listen to what she has to say about it.
Hello everyone, we ask that you keep us in our thoughts and prayers as we enter into tomorrow's court hearing. We hope that justice is served and that this individual is referred to the DA for prosecution so that a future victim doesn't have to go through what we went through the last few years.
Okay. So, that is what they put out on Instagram. Clayton talked. The other two, Maraschini and Gillespie, just stood behind him in solidarity. We have your back. We know what this is like. We've been through it ourselves, is basically what them standing there in silence is saying. And so here's what she has to say about that little clip. On the night before the hearing, the three men, Maraschini, Gillespie, and Echard, appeared together in a somber Instagram video claiming they were my victims and wanted justice, and expressed their hope that I would be prosecuted. Yeah, Clayton said that. The other two just stood there. The audacity was mind-numbing. I have orders of protections against all three of them. That doesn't mean they're valid. Yet here they were, publicly uniting against me and violating their orders in the process. Maraschini and Gillespie just stood there. How is standing there on Instagram violating their protection orders? It's not. And the police departments found that there was no violation. So stop spinning that narrative.
Hello everyone, we ask that you keep us in our thoughts and prayers as we enter into tomorrow's court hearing. We hope that justice is served and that this individual is referred to the DA for prosecution so that a future victim doesn't have to go through what we went through the last few years.
Fraudulently. But that's okay, because hopefully their justice is coming next, because everything that you've done is out. And it's time for their justice to happen and get these things done or get you sued for fraudulently doing these things. Making me look like a liar and a criminal would undoubtedly help them when their orders came up for renewal. They don't have to make you look like a liar or a criminal. You do that all by yourself. In the courtroom, Judge Mata seemed unable to separate the facts from Echard's celebrity. No. You didn't see Judge Mata being like, "Oh my God, it's The Bachelor! Do you have any roses for me?" Judge Mata was not doing that. So stop it. I wasn't dealing with a fair legal system anymore. I was up against influence of fame. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. Nobody gave two shits about him. Because even though he was on The Bachelor, he is just a regular guy. Like, these people, when they go on to reality TV, most of them, like The Bachelor, they are just plain Janes and average Joes from all different walks of life. They're nobodies. When they appear on these shows, nobody knows them. And Clayton's season of The Bachelor, nobody seemed to like him. So, nobody's influenced by the fame. Nobody cares. I hate that argument. It's all anybody has to say about a celebrity. It's 'cause they're famous. No, it's not. There are times when you see that. Like in criminal cases where they just get a slap on the wrist or they get to be bailed out when maybe some other people wouldn't. But that's not what we have here. That's Delulu. What made it even more unsettling was the involvement of the judge's family. Judge Mata's father sat in the overflow Spectre room alongside Echard's supporters who tailgated the event, setting up an RV and a tent at the courthouse. It was hot. Yeah, he had an RV, so he had AC to run the court feed and report live from outside the courthouse. Many people do that. News stations broadcast outside the courtroom all the time. Serving refreshments. Yeah, it's the middle of the summer in Arizona heat. People might get a little thirsty. Justice for Clayton groupies flew in from all over the country and treated the hearing if it was their Super Bowl. People who had spoken to him appeared on video saying the judge's father called the trial a circus and a shit show. To him, apparently watching me be dragged through this ordeal was nothing more than entertainment. You don't know. You haven't heard from him directly yourself. That was hearsay upon hearsay. And if that weren't enough, Judge Mata's sister followed Echard on Instagram, making me wonder how impartial she really was. How much digging did you have to do to find out, one, who Judge Mata's sister was, and two, that she followed Echard on Instagram? Like, that to me takes a long period of time. Oh, my son is yelling in the other room. So who's the stalker in this situation? Because it sounds like you once again. In Judge Mata's ruling, she claimed the petition was not filed in good faith. The petition was not grounded in fact or based on law. The petition was filed for improper purpose, such as to harass the other party, to cause unnecessary delay, or to increase the cost of litigation to the other party. She said not filed in good faith, not grounded in fact or based on law. Filed for an improper purpose? To increase the cost of litigation? How? Had she not read nor understood any of the facts that were presented? You had a doctor saying that the Virgin Mary could get pregnant. So, sorry if we don't believe it in this day and age. Your expert didn't see you when you were pregnant. You didn't have one person. You couldn't have called your own person that confirmed your pregnancy to come into court and verify your pregnancy. You couldn't even get a letter or anything from anybody that gave you confirmation of pregnancy. Nobody did. Instead, you had some stranger come in and try to say, yep, she was 99.9% pregnant. It could happen, when he doesn't know. And then he even said that he didn't take any of your falsifying records into consideration. It makes no sense. She said, I tried to drop the case after I miscarried. Yeah, your explanation for that wasn't very good either. When Echard had no legal fees and Judge Mata refused to let me. Because there could be sanctions and we needed to see if you were telling the truth because you still hadn't proven yet that you were pregnant. Judge Mata ruled the court finds failure to seek in-person care for high-risk pregnancy to be unreasonable and uncredible, but she doesn't understand was that this wasn't a calculated choice. It wasn't avoidance. I had invited Echard and his family of 5 to the OBGYN appointments, knowing their involvement would make the situation feel more manageable. If they had agreed to attend, I would have gone without hesitation. But you didn't, and you had your mother, and we went over how well they could have gone in this video. So, no, you didn't give them a chance. You're a liar. Judge Mata was unaware of my autism diagnosis, as was I at the time, but even without the knowledge, she disregarded the most critical evidence, positive blood and urine HCG, pregnancy hormone tests. HCG, positive HCG tests don't always mean pregnancy. Check out my story on positive HCG test after hysterectomy and menopause, forced menopause. It doesn't mean you're pregnant. Which the other side never contested, as well as still photos and videos of my visible pregnant naked belly. Those don't prove anything. Like, you were supposed to be, let's see, present day versus October of 2023. You were pregnant with twins, and it would have been June, July, August, September. You would have been 5 months pregnant with twins. You would have been showing a lot more. And that's what you look like on one day, but then when you went to court with your moon bump, you were bigger? It doesn't, none of it makes sense. And yet, present day you needs to eat. And if you took a weight loss drug, which is where that scale came from that people figured out, if you're taking weight loss drugs or doing any type of thing that's like Ozempic, stop it. It's not meant for people like you. It's meant for other health things, and other people are taking it for weight loss. You were naturally thin. Now you are sick looking. You look anorexic. And I have been down to a skinny looking sickly, and I thought, oh yay, I'm skinny. And then now I look back at pictures and I'm like, oh my God, I look ill. Being 80 something, 85 pounds, 98 pounds for a grown woman is not okay. Especially for anybody that is bigger than 4'5". You should weigh more than 100 pounds. And let's see here. Findings of facts, they appeared to hold no weight in the final ruling, leaving me to question the integrity of the entire process. Also, this thigh gap thing in your picture, it looks weird. I feel like something in that picture is doctored, but I don't know what. Because I know that you're skinny right now, but still. Her ruling went on to state that there was a pattern of similar behavior. Yes, because you had lied about pregnancy multiple times. She said there were no evidence to present presented to support that accusation that I had faked any pregnancy, past, present. Yes, there was plenty. Yet somehow Judge Mata seemed to treat the unproven claims Woodnick made in his motion as fact. It was as if his filings became the gospel she leaned on to craft her narrative, despite the complete lack of evidence to support it. There is so much evidence to support it. That's the problem. You may not see it, but it's there. In the end, Judge Mata gave Echard and Woodnick what they wanted. She referred me to Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell's office. I think I said that earlier. For possible prosecution. Yeah, for perjury. And it should be tampering with evidence. Handed down $149,000 judgment for Echard's legal fees, despite having no fees having been incurred when I tried to dismiss the paternity case after my miscarriage. Yes, there was. There was still costs because he had to hire lawyers before you claim you weren't pregnant anymore. It was clear I wasn't being punished for facts. I was clearly being punished for daring to go up a former reality TV star. That's a load of shit, and you know it. She states that her and her attorney are trying to overturn Judge Mata's ruling by appealing it. One judge already said there's nothing wrong here. She ruled correctly, or there was nothing biased or anything wrong with the way she ruled, and held herself in this. I'm sure the appeals courts are going to knock it down before it gets to even oral arguments. Then she talks about, according to the American Association of Blood Banks, approximately 30% of paternity tests reveal the presumed father is not biologically related to the child, and if the appeal isn't successful, this decision could set. She talks about the dangerous precedent. No, it sets a precedent that if you are going to lie and try to manipulate men into relationships or taking care of children that aren't really yours, it's not going to happen. Maricopa County isn't having any of it, and I hope everywhere else does the same. It is not dangerous for women, because if a woman would have come in, and let's say one of them's famous, and says, and she is actually pregnant, and says, well, I slept with 2 guys and the famous guy all in 1 week. So all 3 of them could be the father. First one is the famous person you go after, because that would be great because they have money, right? Well, it turns out that he's not the father. She is in fact pregnant, and there's ultrasounds and everything like that. He is in fact the father. Doctors confirmed it. He went to a visit. Then the second guy, he is not the father either. They all 3 could have been because she slept with him in that amount of time. But the second one isn't either. She's not getting prosecuted on any of those 2 cases because she was in fact pregnant and they could have been fathers. And let's say there were no BJs. They were all intercourse scenarios. The third guy she takes to court is the dad. So one, we've proven somebody was the father. There was fetal DNA or a baby present to take DNA from. The other 2 just happened not to be the father. But women, girls, space your stuff out so that you know who the baby daddy is. Matter of fact, start keeping it more sacred. Only share yourself fully with people that deserve it. Stop giving the milk away for free. Not everybody deserves us. And I hope it means something to people still, and that we're just not having sex just to have sex. And like, I get it, it's fun, but it's supposed to be something intimate, a bond created with people that we love and stuff like that. You can do it for fun, but you might be in a paternity case where you have to use all that money to find out which of the 3 people are the baby daddy. And maybe the 2 that aren't the baby daddy would have been great, but the 3rd one that actually is the baby daddy is a piece of shit. You know? So be mindful of who you're sleeping with. Do you want to have children with them, or do you want kids at all? If not, don't do it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, not published in a real world. In an effort to pressure Rachel Mitchell, to file charges against me, Echard has done several interviews. This violates the order of protection I have against him. No, it doesn't. And the cops have already told you that. There is no violation in the order of protection. It says, defendant shall not communicate or post untruth or harassing comments regarding the plaintiff online. He hasn't. And a court has said that Clayton is telling the truth. So he has a court to back his truth up. He has a court order saying that you lied. So he's not speaking untruth. And the truth is the defense. Shall not cause others to communicate or post untrue. We're not posting untrue things, except for the fact that we're posting what you write. Those things are untrue, but we're also correcting your lies with truth so that people know. On one podcast, he, said that, if the police showed up to take him away for telling his truth, that it was going to be a bigger stink and da-da-da-da-da. And it was like he doesn't. That's because he doesn't have to worry about violating the protection order, because anytime he talks, he's only speaking the truth. And so he gets to just live his life and say what happened, because he doesn't have to worry about violating anything, because he's not saying anything untrue. She talks about the Charlie Kirk show, which she said in the other one. She talks about somehow they have always find out what I've done. They obtain police reports, both audio and written. They pass them along, who then make videos dissecting them. Yeah, you are misusing police resources. You have way too many calls into it for horrible stuff. She's like, and for someone on the autism spectrum, the constant feeling of being watched and judged and criticized for exercising my legal rights is overwhelming. You're not exercising your legal rights. You called the police on an Instagram post where 2 people stood silently and reported them for standing quiet. That's a waste of resources. And autism has nothing to do with it. Once again, autism is not a part of this case, whether you have it or you don't. I will still need more evidence to conclude whether you actually do or you don't. And yeah, we're going to scrutinize that evidence if you ever put it out, because your evidence is not credible, because you are not credible, and you have been known for arts and crafts, and not the kinds of arts and crafts that I like. So she ends with this message for the Justice for Clayton people. Imagine for just a minute that I am your friend. Oh God, Lord help me if I have to be friends with her. I don't even think if we were the only 2 people on an island that I would be friends with her. I'd be like, you know what? I am going to go build my raft by myself. Do not come with me. You will make my raft horrible. In 2017, I come to you shaken, telling you about a stranger on a plane. Oh God, she's always got to mention this. She was also disturbed by the way my boyfriend had spoken for 9 hours. She felt compelled to warn me. And props to the stranger. She doesn't know the whole situation. She just was trying to let you know if you needed a way out, she was there. And to let you know that if you were in an abusive situation, that you had somebody to talk to. That was a very nice thing of that lady to do. But also, sometimes strangers misread situations. I've talked about a scenario myself about where a stranger misconstrued me getting upset at a nail tech about price changing because they don't stick to their prices and they don't tell you the price of things. And then by the end of it, you're like, oh, I came in for $40. And then at the end, when your nails are done and they give you your total, it's now $200. And you're like, but I came in here for a $40 set. And so I got a little perturbed, and then somebody asked my daughter if she was okay and safe, or does she need to be saved? My daughter laughed. I was like, oh my God, that is funny. But I wasn't even going off on my daughter. But they were worried for my daughter because I was like, look at this price. But sometimes they don't know the full situation. And strangers worrying about people, it's okay. Because that whole, if you see something, say something, that should happen. Even if you might be wrong. It's always better safe than sorry. You know, but she said, even though you weren't there, you would dismiss her concerns, saying she misunderstood his behavior. When I later confide in you that this emotional abuse escalated to physical violence, choking, and suffocation, you would be shocked. Would you support me when I filed for a restraining order? If I actually saw things, like, and was thinking, why are you with this person? And did they show up? Or if I had seen them, like, and if they were stalking you. But if you were still in a relationship with the person, I would tell you, yeah, you would need to get out of that situation and you can do something about it. But if you continue to stay with that person, no. Unless you finally decided to walk away. And something that kind of pisses me off about this, and she does fast forward later, but she's putting all this in about a Clayton situation. And none of this happened with Clayton. She's talking about Maraschini in this. Would you support me when I filed a restraining order? Would you go to court with me and watch as I started shaking violently and uncontrollably when I see him in the hallway outside of court? Well, nobody's seen that. And I've seen Amber Heard try to act like that too, and you can tell it was fake. So, I mean, is it a viable performance or is it really bad acting? If it was genuinely real, yeah. But if I went and saw you acting like a big fat faker, and I was your friend and I believed you up until that point, I would be done with you. I would probably walk out of court right then. Say, I'm not going to be a part of this. This is BS. You're being extra. Stop it. Just act natural. Don't put on a big performance. Or would you, like Justice for Clayton has done, twist the story, turn me into the abuser, and build an entire movement around defending him as a victim? How have we twisted the story when we've put your words, your text messages, your emails, your court documents on the screen and gone over them? How is that twisting the narrative? If I told you I was pregnant by him and he came with me to Planned Parenthood to get the pills, he didn't. Would you claim years later that I faked the pregnancy when even he admitted in the deposition that it was real? He didn't go with you. He wasn't around when you took those pills. It's in the messages. So stop lying about that. So no, I wouldn't believe you there either. Fast forward to 2021, I tell you I'm pregnant by a guy I've seen briefly. I'm confused and unsure of what to do. He tells me which doctor to go to in order to take a pregnancy test in a medical setting. I comply and they confirm it. Then at his request, I arrange a video call with the doctor's office so he can hear it for himself. What doctor did he hear it from? If anybody knows this, because I don't know if a doctor actually confirmed it, or if they said, yes, she tested positive for a pregnancy, or she has positive HCG. If that's all it was confirming a pee stick, then yeah, I don't know that I would believe it. He texts me, take the effing pills, take the effing pills. Well, do you seem pregnant here? Have I been to any of the appointments with you? Because as a friend, if you had nobody to go with, I would go with you. Do I get to confirm this stuff as your friend? Or am I just hearing this later from you? Because if I don't have any proof, then I might not believe you. Would you have supported my decision to take him to court for coercing me to have an abortion? Years later, would you claim the pregnancy was fake? Would you ignore that the confirmed test at One Medical, the doctor's video call, and everything else that proved it? Have I seen the proof, though? Or is this coming from you? If I've seen the proof, then maybe I would have your back. But if I'm just hearing it from you, and I don't have any of the proof myself, I don't know. I would need more evidence to believe the story. Would you rewrite the story, turning him into the victim, starting fundraising campaigns to support his legal battle, and cast me as the villain? We didn't cast you as the villain. You made yourself the villain. And then here she goes to 2023, so she's addressed each and every one of her victims. In 2023, after being celibate for a year, I call you 11 days after hooking up with Clayton Echard and say, oh my God, I just took a pregnancy test and it's positive. I'm in shock and I can't believe my eyes. At my request, you buy a test, which I take in front of you. Oh, at your request. So you were saying at your request Clayton did this? Because you seem shocked every time he asked you to take a test. You buy a test, which I take in front of you, and it's positive too. Then I ask you to come with me to urgent care so I can take one in a medical setting. When that test is also positive, do you question it? I need to be there for an ultrasound because I need more confirmation than a pee stick, because pee sticks can be wrong. If I told you I was unsure of what to do with the unplanned pregnancy, would you think I was wrong for filing a paternity test? I would have told you don't file it now. Like, you need to wait till you're past the first trimester, that we know that this is a healthy baby, that you've made your decision and what you're going to do with it. Because here in Texas, we have all this confirmation done at 6 weeks. 6 weeks, we have ultrasounds, pee tests, and blood tests if you go right away or as soon as you know it. And then there's no talk about abortion after 6 weeks here in Texas. So in California, you get a little bit more of a timeline, or maybe Arizona you do too. But no, I would tell you, do not file a parenting plan. Let's see how the pregnancy goes. See if once the baby's, once time goes on, as I told my daughter, sometimes dads are on board right away. Sometimes it takes seeing them on a sonogram. Sometimes it takes hearing that heartbeat for them to be like, oh shit, this is real. Sometimes it is until they hold the baby. Others, it's till they can interact with the child and they're not just this bump on a log that just gets carried around. Other times, some of them just never take responsibility, but they know that there's a child. I would tell you to wait to see if he starts showing up. Because once he goes to one appointment with you and sees it for himself, you wouldn't have had to file this suit. You would have still had a paternity test done because he still would believe that it's not his baby because you didn't have intercourse. So he would have had that test done. But if you were truly pregnant, I would have told you to wait. Do not be filing this shit even 12 weeks in. 2 months in. No. Wait till you get closer to the end of the pregnancy. Make sure that it's viable. Don't just be filing prenatal cases all the time. It's ridiculous. If I took a blood test 4 months later that I confirmed I was still pregnant, would you say it was wrong if you'd seen my obviously pregnant belly grow over the months? If I saw your belly grow over the months, sure. What I did not see was your belly grow over months. Like you didn't take... I have a picture of my daughter's belly every week of the pregnancy. So when we flip through her pregnancy journal, you get to see every week how her belly grew and grew and grew and grew. We didn't see that with you. We would see you be slightly pregnant with a gluten burrito belly, and then you would not be pregnant. You wouldn't have a belly. Then we'd see you with a huge belly bump, and then there would be a smaller belly bump. Like, that's just not how things work. So, like, your belly bump doesn't change day to day in, like, noticeable ways. When I miscarried, I was heartbroken and tried to drop the paternity case. You didn't try to drop it. You sat on that information, and then eventually you couldn't lie about it anymore. And you said, "Oh, I'm not pregnant anymore." Would you think it was right for the judge to allow it to drag on for 8 months? Depends on what I believed at the time. Do you think it was right for them to hand me $149,000 judgment referred to the Attorney General for filing a case that didn't require proof, although I had it? Like I said, depends on what my beliefs are. If my beliefs are what my beliefs are right now, then yeah. If I believed at any moment that I thought you were lying, I would think that it was okay. But why do people need to imagine to be your friend to get this scenario? Where are the friends that you have that should know from this point of view? Why do you need us to pretend to be your friend? Because you don't have any friends that have this information? Or did you have friends and they found out you were a liar too? Because we've heard from nobody. She talks about the judge being invited. She doesn't know if he was invited to listen to her. Would you think if you saw the judge's sister as a follower, like, once again, how do you know? Like, this is just speculation. Finally, in 2024, after a lifetime of symptoms, I'm diagnosed with autism. You've known me for years, seen my quirks. La la la, I cancel plans. You watch me struggle and be overwhelmed. A doctor diagnosed me, which we have no proof of. Would you accuse me of lying? Would you tell me I'm making it up, that I'm weaponizing it? Depends. If we are your friend, we have a lot more insight than we do now. So we would probably still think the same thing. Offended by my diagnosis and go online to start a fundraiser for people you think have real autism. Who cares why somebody started a fundraiser? Somebody raising awareness and stuff for things, whether you have it or not, is one thing. If you have it, great. It's a fund that goes to you. If you don't have it, it's a fund that goes to autistic people. So either way, it's a good cause. I've been standing here explaining myself to you, who acts as if they know with certainty about what happened between me and Echard that night we hooked up, and who know I was wasn't abused by Maraschini over a 2-year relationship, but you weren't there, and that should have told me everything. We don't have to be there to figure out the story. We don't know every single thing that happened. God, I don't want to see any of that. It's probably awkward because you do seem awkward, and that's because you lack confidence and self-esteem. You just are not secure with yourself. And sometimes that happens. But there's help for that. There's medication for that anxiety and depression, things to make you feel better. But you have it in your head automatically that you have to be something you're not. And so you have to put on an act during every part of your life. That's draining on your mental health. So still, if I wasn't, until I saw one of you admit you were afraid what would happen when this case was over, afraid that without it, your community you built around will fall apart, that I finally understood this was never about me. It was about you. You built this community around my destruction because it made you feel righteous. But it's a fragile thing held together by your refusal to see me as a human. No, you're a human, just a shitty one. The moment I've seen as a real person, everything falls apart. No, we know you're a real person. We need you to be a better person, though. The hashtags, the outrage, the cause, and all of that will be left is uncomfortable reality that this wasn't about me at all. It was about you and the cruelty you masked as a movement. You know what? People come together for like things. When you agree on things, you come together. Like, I have my work people. I have my baseball mom people. I have my cheer mom people. You know, there's people online that I'm like, oh yeah, I like this. We believed in this case. But there's some people from a previous case that while I stand with them and we agree on that issue, there are many other issues that I can't stand them and I don't like them as a person. There are people I think go too far. There are people that do cling on. But a lot of us would like to move on and cover other injustices. I know I'm trying to, but you keep being offended. You keep treating us like we have no brain. But we know the truth. And while you're still going to sit out here and spend your lives, you're going to be called out for it. Plain and simple. Ending with our quote of the day, as we do in this Owens case, we are going to talk about euphobia, which I think Owens has a bit of. It's the ridiculous and absurd fear of being yourself. When you let others' opinion of you matter more than what you think of yourself, this fear will hinder your growth and greatly diminish your chance of finding happiness. And I think that's true. I think it's what I've talked about a lot in this particular video. Is don't be afraid to be you. You are one of a kind on this earth. You were put here for a reason. We are not supposed to be copy and pastes of everybody. This world is meant to be diverse and unique and full of differences, different ways of thinking, different ways of looking, different beliefs, different opinions. That's what makes the world great. We all have a unique perspective on life. All of us have different views on things and different outlooks, different experiences. But with those things in our lives, we can come together with other people and find common ground. And it all comes from being yourself. So don't be anybody else. Okay? That is my Mama Ducky speech for the day. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, comment down below, and follow along for more videos. Hopefully not always on this case, but other cases that we're covering as well. Bye.